Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Ruling Sports TV. I'm Alicia Jessup, the author of RulingSports.com and BusinessOfCollegeSports.com. What I'm going to do right now is break down the West region of the NCAA Division I men's basketball bracket. So let's get started from the West in the field of 64. First up, I have Michigan State versus Long Island. This Long Island team is a really high-scoring, up-tempo team, and what that results in is turnovers. Michigan State has one of the best defenses in the country. This is a team that started out unranked aboard the USS Carl Vinson in the Carrier Classic versus UNC. They lost that game. They lost a game versus Duke in the Maui Invitational, but they have gone on to some great success, and I think their resume and just the power that they've shown throughout the season, along with their defense, is what's going to allow them to beat Long Island. Next up, we have Memphis versus St. Louis. If you follow me on Twitter or if you know me in real life, you know that I love this Memphis team. And I love this Memphis team because I enjoy watching its three highest scorers, Will Barton, Joe Jackson, and Tariq Black. They are just so fast and talented, and I truly believe that Will Barton is one of the most underrated players in the country. St. Louis can pose a deep problem for Memphis, though, in that it has the seventh best defense in the country. So if all of Memphis's scores aren't on, St. Louis could beat them. I don't see that happening, though, with the pressure of this tournament and the leadership of this Memphis team. So I'm expecting Memphis to beat St. Louis. Next up, we have New Mexico versus Long Beach State. New Mexico is a very talented defensive team. It limits opponents to 38% on shooting, and it held opposing teams to 59.1 points per game on average. But what this Long Beach State team has this year is a really impressive resume. It beat a then-ranked Pittsburgh team and also Xavier, which is in the field this year, and it came within 2 points of beating two of the best teams in the country, UNC and Kansas. So what Long Beach State has is the mental toughness as well as the durability of its players to beat New Mexico and to win on offense. Next is Louisville versus Kentucky. If you're looking for a sleeper in this region, you might want to look, Louisville versus Davidson. You might want to look at Davidson. They're having a bit of a winning streak, winning 18 of their last 21, and they led their conference in scoring. They're a really explosive scoring team, averaging 78.4 points per game. But what Louisville has is defense. They hold teams to 37.9% on shooting. And ultimately, I think that number, which is really impressive, is what's going to allow Louisville to beat Davidson. Next, we have Murray State versus Colorado State. And this matchup should be called the matchup of the great young coaches. Steve Prohm for the Murray State Racers and Tim Miles for the Colorado State University Rams have done awesome things with these two programs. Murray State was undefeated for a long portion of this season. They lost one game and they won 30, which is a huge testament to what Steve Prohm is able to do. I think that experience, the durability of this team, and it takes a lot of toughness to win 30 games in a season, is what's going to allow them to beat Colorado State. That and the fact that Colorado State doesn't have a big man. So I think that's going to hurt the Rams in this matchup. Next up, we have Marquette versus the winner of the BYU or Iona first four game. Marquette can beat either one of these teams. This is a team that made it to the Sweet 16 last year. They lost to UNC, and they have two very strong veterans, Darius Johnson-Odom and Jay Crowder. Johnson-Odom averages 18.3 points per game, and Crowder averages 17.6 per game. And so I think with that offensive talent, they're going to beat either BYU or Iona. Next up, we have Florida versus Virginia. Florida was a lot of people's preseason favorite just because of the deep backcourt, the big size of this team, as well as its versatility. Throughout the course of the season, Florida has been explosive on offense, averaging 76.4 points per game, and also great on defense, holding opponents to 66 points per game. Virginia's caused a bit of trouble for some teams. It had a pretty good game a couple weeks ago against Florida State. I believe it ended up losing that game though. But it's really good at guarding from the three-point line. It limits opponents to 29.4% there. So Florida is going to need to go deep in terms of scoring. It's going to have to shoot a lot of twos and maybe create some foul trouble for Virginia in order to win this game. Ultimately, though, I think the Gators will win. Finally, we have Missouri versus Norfolk State. This Missouri team has won 30 games this season as well and battled through a tough Big 12 conference. And what it has is resume wins and chemistry amongst senior leaders. 4 of its starters are seniors, and so they've experienced the NCAA tournament before, playing last year through the second round. This is Norfolk State's first NCAA appearance, and unfortunately that's what I think is going to prevent it from moving any further in the tournament. So I'm giving this win to Missouri. Okay, so next up we're into the round of 32, and on my bracket I have Michigan State paired against Memphis. Michigan State, a lot of analysts are expecting them to make it to the Final Four. If you have your bracket filled out that way, I think that's a really solid pick. Draymond Green, who is one of the Spartans' top scorers and one of the best players on the team, has the capability to lead the Spartans deep into the tournament. But like I said earlier, I love this Memphis team, and I really believe in what they're able to do. And I think they had a rough patch early on in the season. Their non-conference play wasn't great, but I think these 3 players, Tariq Black, Joe Jackson, and Will Barton, understand the importance of this tournament, and I don't think they're going to lose in the second round. They're going to come out, they're going to score a lot, and I think they're going to shut down Michigan State's defense. So I expect the Memphis Tigers to win. Next up, we have Long Beach State versus Louisville. We spoke earlier about Long Beach State's impressive resume, but ultimately I think the ride stops here. Louisville, like we talked about earlier, has one of the best defenses in the country. They hold teams to 37.9% shooting, and that's definitely going to pose troubles for the 49ers. They also have more star power in terms of Peyton Siva and Kyle Keurig. They both shoot over 70% from the free throw line. So if Long Beach State gets into foul trouble, Louisville is really going to run off with this game. I'm expecting Louisville to beat Long Beach State. Up next, we have Murray State versus Marquette, and my choice here might surprise some people, and that's because I'm picking Murray State, the mid-major team, to beat Marquette. I'm doing this because, like I said, Murray State is a team that has proven that it can win. It is a sharpshooting team. They have great offense from 3 of their starters who average over 10 points per game, so they can definitely ward off the Marquette's defense a bit. And I think Marquette relies too heavily upon just 2 people in Johnson Odom and Crowder. So I think if Murray State finds a way to shut down those 2 guys offensively, Murray State will definitely win. They're pretty good defensively too, so I'm picking Murray State, going out on a limb with that one. Finally, in this side of the round of 32, I have Florida versus Missouri. This is going to be a hard-hitting, really interesting game to watch. Ultimately, I'm giving it to Missouri. That's because Missouri is low in turnovers, 10.6 per game. They're a high-scoring team, just like Florida, but ultimately, I think that turnover percentage, that number, is going to be crucial for Missouri, and I think it's going to allow them to beat Florida. I also like Missouri's wins against Kansas, Notre Dame, and Baylor. So now we are moving to the Sweet 16, and I dropped my cue card. In the Sweet 16 coming out of the West, I have Memphis versus Louisville. I love this Memphis team, so I really hate to do this, but I think Louisville is going to stop them. And again, it's because of Louisville's defense. At this point in the season, every single one of these teams has great offenses. But to me, what really makes a championship worthy team or a team that can go deep in the tournament is one that can stop teams on defense. Louisville beat Memphis during the course of the regular season, and I think they're going to do it again. Next up, we have the battle of the teams of 30 wins, Murray State versus Missouri. Ultimately, I'm picking Missouri just because they have a tougher resume and they know how to win against high-scoring teams, especially Kansas. And I think they're going to use that experience to beat Murray State. So, into the Final Four from the West, I'm picking Missouri over Louisville. Again, it's just that resume from Missouri, the chemistry between the seniors, the 4 senior starters, what Frank Haith has been able to do in his first year as head coach, their ability to score and also limit opponent scoring with a strong defense. I think this makes the Missouri Tigers a team to compete with. So they're going to the Final Four. Thanks for watching.